Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Business Podcast. Joining me for today's conversation is Rusty Bynum. Rusty is an entrepreneur who has served in the financial industry for over 25 years as a certified financial planner. And today, we're going to unpack his entrepreneurial journey, including how he overcame a business divorce. We're also going to discover why and how establishing a morning routine is critical to unlocking new levels of growth. But first, I'd like to invite you to get a copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change. It is the leader's guide to achieving exponential growth in the age of AI. Text me 832-549-5792 on my cell phone, and I will reply giving you a copy of Banking on Change so that you can level up your mind, level up your marketing, and level up your sales, so that you can level up your business and your life. Welcome to the show, Rusty. It is good to share time with you today, buddy.
Thanks, Robert. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Man, you have come so far, and I'm so grateful for the time that we have been able to share together through our time in Platinum Elevated. You and I have been in a mastermind together, and you have been so just instrumental in my own personal journey of growth, and to see what you have done as well over the last 12 months or so is absolutely incredible.
I appreciate you saying that. It's been a lot of fun to get to know you and dissect each other's businesses and how we're doing things, and at the end of the day, taking the things that we've learned through the years and using those to help other people out and then to work together, it's just very fulfilling.
It is. And you talk about taking the things that we've learned through the years. When you think back on just your own entrepreneurial journey, I know when we first met, you were going through a very difficult situation. What was the big lesson that you gained through that experience of what you called a business divorce? Because it's something that at the time I had never really thought of. I had never really even had heard of before. Take us back to what you learned, because it's all about perspective, because those watching, those listening, they may have gone through one, they may be going through one, or they might be like me and have never thought about this idea of a business divorce to begin with in the first place.
Anytime you run a business or anytime you have a partner or anytime you work with other people, there's always uncomfortable situations that happen. Some situations are easy to resolve, some aren't. I've been doing this a long time, running my own business for a long time, and the old adage, you don't know what you don't know, is as true today as it was back then. So anytime you run into difficult situations, you have to make decisions, and you have to decide really, it's no different than deciding what direction do we want to go this year versus the direction we were going last year. Just some of those decisions are more difficult than others, and then others take more time to implement than others. So, if I've done a lot of education through the years. I was fortunate enough to go to college years ago, and I thought that my education was over. And as I tell my boys now, your education's just beginning, because I've learned so much, and I learned a lot through the last few years as I was going through this difficult spot. But it was, very similar to, when I started my career 25 plus years ago. I didn't know what I was doing. I was, didn't know how to run a business, didn't know how to talk to people. So it's just an evolution of, learning through decisions that you make, and there are pros and cons to every decision. And, taking those nuggets or the things that you learn, and then being able to take those and talk to other people about it, so that A, someone else is learning, B, someone else is learning from the mistakes that you've made, but also the things that you've done well, so that basically anytime you can help, I guess, shorten the time of someone's education in anything that we do is beneficial, not only to the person that you're helping, but but also, it's always been beneficial to me too.
Well, it's all about tuition, and
Yes, it is.
we pay tuition in different ways. And so for someone who is watching or listening to this conversation, what advice would you give them that if they're facing a tough transition right now in their own business based upon the education that you've gained, both, like you said, you went to college, but even more so, your learning was just starting once you
Right.
got out and started your business. What perspective can you share with them, someone who is going through a tough time, through a transitional time right now in their own business?
Believe in yourself.
Mm.
You've gotten to where you are for a reason. And, those things don't happen by chance. Most people that are entrepreneurs, at least the ones that I know, they work really hard. Now we're not going to talk about ways to to be better at that or to have more time or things like that. But people that work really hard to try to get a result and to try to help other people. So first of all, believe in yourself. Second of all, continue to educate yourself. Surround yourself by other people. Now, sometimes those people have been through what you're going through now. Other times they can just listen. Other times they can give you a perspective. But at the end of the day, own it. Recognize that the reasons, try to make sure you understand the reasons why this is happening so you learn from it. And then next, just, sometimes you just got to put your head down and go through it.
I want to give you credit where credit is due here, because you talk about this idea of perspective. And that was one of the things I wrote about in Banking on Change. Perspective
Mm-hmm.
is the sum of context and framing. And when we were in our mastermind, you noticed something in me. And that's once again, why you talked about, if you're going through a tough time, if you're going through a tough period within your business, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because one of the things that you saw with me, and you're one of the reasons that we're having this conversation on this podcast. That's why I say I have to give you credit, because you called me out on my own bullshit. You called me out on things that I was not able to see in myself. And I'm so grateful for that. When you're surrounding yourself with people who ask you the tough questions, because you said, with the other business that I had, you're like, you just kind of you're just soulless. But when you start talking about this new thing you're wanting to build, this level up business, I was a different person. I didn't see that. You saw that. Who has helped you see things different? Because like you said, you've invested a lot in yourself over the years with your own personal education, with your own personal growth. Who has
Sure.
helped you along the way?
Every single person in one way or the other.
Mm.
Whether it's, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars through the years on education, from training myself to be a better business person, training myself on how to work with people. But the educations that we get every single day from the people that we work with have been the biggest ones and the biggest takeaways, because you learn about what other people have done, and then you take what they've learned and you figure out how you can implement or take those small tidbits from what they've accomplished or what they haven't, and try to work that into the way that you run your business or the way that you live your life. The books that I've read, I enjoy listening. I love being outside, and but I like to accomplish multiple tasks at the same time. So I listen to a lot of books, a lot of ebooks, and
Give me a book. Give me a book that has really impacted your life as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband. What's the book, or maybe the top two, top three books that have just resonated to the top for you within your own educational journey here?
Years ago, the biggest impact from a sales standpoint, from just a pure business standpoint, was David Sandler's book, "How to Teach a Kid How to Ride a Bike at a Seminar." I think that was the name of it. And I found a way to communicate with other people that was important to me. You meet people that you talk to, and the more you talk to them, the more you find out that they fudge the things that they say, or they're misleading, or and that's never who I wanted to be.
Mm.
And the way that David Sandler in this book described things, it helped me kind of understand the better way of asking questions. And I found through the years, the better questions you ask, and the longer you can keep your mouth shut, the more you'll learn. So it started probably with that book. In the last year, I've read quite a few, but Buy Back Your Time uh, was a big
Dan
one.
Martell. Yep.
Dan Martell, I'm still struggling with that part, but I'm working towards it. I've made hire last year, making some hires this year.
Where's the struggle? Where's the struggle for you when it comes to the principles from Buy Back Your Time? Because I mean that book that Dan wrote is so practical.
It
Um,
is.
we have implemented the email GPS system, and that has been a game changer. So we've tried to get me out of my inbox, and we've tried a lot of different systems and protocols and methodologies, and for some weird reason, and most likely I was the problem, I kept taking back my email.
Right.
But something I believe has shifted now with the email GPS system that Dan wrote about in Buy Back Your Time. Where's the struggle for you here when it comes to buying back your own time?
Having the time to figure out how to buy it back, uh, you know, and having the time to do that. I went from having a larger team than I do now.
Hmm.
So, looking at, okay, what piece is next? You never, when dealing with people, you always want to make sure that you're making a good decision, because you're not just talking about your livelihood, you're responsible for someone else's.
Sure.
Then, really, from my end, I'm in a very heavily compliance world. So a lot of the tools and the things that you have available that you can do, I can't do. I have to. The companies that we deal with have to have my email. There are some compliance things that we have to deal with that I haven't figured out how to navigate around yet, because I haven't taken the time uh, to do some of those things. Time is the most precious thing that we have.
Mm.
And, you know, that's why that book resonated so much with me, and trying to really take principle by principle and apply it to me in my current situation. Because when we met, a year ago, of, what little hair I have was on fire. I never knew when I had to go from this to putting out something else, dealing with all these things from a business divorce standpoint that I was dealing with. Every day was different, and none of those seemed to be very good. So now, after all of that, having the time to spend making sure that, and I've got a phenomenal team that we're going to continue to add to. But really kind of starting from scratch, and taking the time to think about, what if I had to do it all over again? What would I want it to look like?
Mm.
And that's really easy to say, but the different thoughts that I've had on where I want the business to go, how I want it to grow, the people I want to be involved in the growth. It does. It takes some time. And you mentioned earlier Miracle Morning, and some of those things, and using, Buy Back Your Time, uh, talking about the Miracle Morning. And you and I've talked about this. I read the book and listened to it, and I'm like, it just wasn't, it just seemed hokey to me.
Well,
you know.
I want to pause you. I want to pause you before we get too far into the miracle
Yeah.
morning, because that's such a huge part of just what I've seen in your own personal transformational journey. I want to come back to time for a second, because time
Sure.
is the great equalizer. We all get 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. I think, particularly because you're coming from this through the lens of financial services as a certified financial planner, the the concept of time, we often say, at least growing up, was you're not spending your time wisely. And I've had a major shift in time, particularly when I was writing Banking on Change, because I asked the question, who's on your team? Team being an acronym of time, energy, attention, and money. And the point about time is the question that we can ask, how do you invest your time? Because like you said, time is the most precious thing that we have. And unfortunately, it's taken me a long time to figure that out myself
Right.
as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband. But now it's like, okay, well, how do I invest my time to get a multiplier return back for my time? That's one. Two is then how do you spend your energy? So it's almost shifting the concept of time as an investment instead of an expense, because energy is the real expense, because energy is finite. It's like the energy that we have, and that's why I'm so big on the Colby profile, because Colby looks at how we naturally take action or how we solve problems, and there's a lot of energy. Same thing when we think about buy back your time with Dan. It's like, how are you spending that energy? Because eventually you're gonna have to plug in, recharge. It's also true then, it's the attention, what are you paying attention to? Because what you pay attention to is going to directly impact how you spend your energy, which is going to directly impact how you invest your time. And that's all going to come back to the last part of this, which is the end, which is money, which is finances. And your point on time, you had a shift. And this is the whole, I think, the underlying theme of what I'm hearing from you today is, looking back on 25 years as an entrepreneur, your perspective has changed for one reason. You've continuously invested in yourself. And as a result, you're seeing things differently. Because what you saw 25 years ago when you're first getting started is different than what you're seeing today. And when you begin to see different, you're going to think different. But that doesn't always lead to a new action or a new behavior. Just because you see something different and you think differently doesn't mean that you're going to change your behavior. What I have found working with leaders is to bridge the gap between the thought and the action comes down to the feeling. It comes down to the emotion. That desire to be different or to act different or to do different has to be greater than the desire to stay the same, which is where I've seen the shift with you. Where you've really adapted is this idea of your morning routine, and as you mentioned before, the miracle morning. Hey, it's JRLA. Quick message to help you apply some of what Rusty has been sharing about the importance of continuing to learn so that you can level up your mind, marketing, and sales as a B2B entrepreneur. That's why I want to give you a copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change. This is the leader's guide to achieving exponential growth in the age of AI. Now, you could go to Amazon right now and buy a copy for $30, or you could text me on my cell, 832-549-5792, and I'll send you a copy of Banking on Change that includes the biggest lessons I've learned as a B2B entrepreneur studying the intersection of marketing, sales, technology, and human behavior for over 20 years. Inside, you're going to find dozens of strategic frameworks and thinking tools, including how to look at what you're learning, how to apply what you're learning, how to move forward and make progress, to apply what you're learning every 90 days so that you continue to level up your mind, level up your marketing, and level up your sales. And as a result, level up your business and your life. Now, let's get back to the conversation with Rusty. Take us there, because you're like, this is just complete hokiness. You were seeing something different before than what you are now, because your behavior is changing, your actions are changing on this front.
Right.
What's been the big shift?
Well, and you brought up a good point. I've always been someone who, if I see something that I want, or if I'm going to try to make something work, I, I'm not really worried about the consequences guy. I'm not really worried about, this might be bad or this might not work out. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as we talked over the past year, working with banks and credit unions, which is a great feat to try to work with those institutions, but your ability to listen and understand what people are going through. A lot of times people just need a push. And the push for me has been making a decision to change the way that I was doing business, and then getting through that process, which took a lot longer than I ever thought, coming out of that process in a situation that I didn't think I would be in, and then being able to look back at that and say, okay, now that's over. What's next? Try to leave the past behind, learn from it, utilize it, and move on. And as I was thinking through, I like routines, and what I found last year was, as I was trying to read more, as I was trying to get in better shape, as I was trying to take more time. I read another book last year, and he talked about, and I've got it over here, I can't remember who wrote it, called Thinking Time. And it made a lot of sense. He'd come up with these great ideas and he'd say, now go think. Now go think. Because we read great books. James Robert, you can name books. I can't name the books and the authors. I'm just not wired to remember all that stuff. You have all these things right on the tip of your tongue, and it's always been impressive to me. But so many times I'll read something and then I go to the next book and I never take any action. So trying to take action in some of the things that I read and how they would apply to me. And I read The Miracle Morning, and I'm like, well, they said, okay, we've got an app. Well, an app, something that I can follow, something I can listen to. It's like a workout routine. I loved having a personal trainer until we moved, and now I live so far away from a gym, I've got to do it at home. Well, if you've got that personal trainer, if you've got that business coach, if you've got an app like that Miracle Morning app that you can just hit a button, you check off all the boxes. Now, do you get something out of it every day? Only if you want to. It's just like your workout. So instead of getting up at try to get up at 6 every morning, hit the snooze button until 6:30. Get up, try to get a workout in and start work at 8. There's not enough time. So that's one of the things that I learned through Elevated. It's like, well, quit hitting the snooze button. Just get up. Well, started getting up at 6. Had a little bit more time. Had a better workout. Read Miracle Morning. Said, well, I think I should try that. But I didn't have an extra 15 minutes. So then it was, well, try get up at 5:30. Well, but I want to read this. So now, all of that said was started getting up a little bit earlier. And I keep finding that that's when I have the best ideas. That's when my mind's just kind of open. Everything, it's dark outside. No one's up. No one's moving around. I read my daily devotional while I ride my exercise bike. It's 10 to 12 minutes.
You're hacking time right there, because you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your mind, you're taking care of your soul, your spirit. So you're really getting a 3x return, if you will, on that 10 or 15 minutes of time. Otherwise,
right. It always frustrated me because I would ride this bike and I'm not going anywhere. And then I wanted to read these daily devotionals, and that's 30 minutes between the two. So then I started reading while I was riding the bike. So now I ride the bike for 12 to 15 minutes, and as soon as I'm done, one of the things is I'm getting old. I just turned 50, and you don't have to worry about that for a long time. But as I'm getting older, I found that it's really important. My back will hurt, or my neck will hurt. Stretching. Well, stretch little here, little there, stuff would still hurt. And I decided, well, Miracle Morning's going to take 10 to 15 minutes. I'll make that stretching time. So I get off the bike, finish the devotional, get down on the floor, stretch, do my miracle morning. At the end, try to scribe and write down things. And what I found is that while I'm doing that, I'm generating ideas. Uh, at the minimum, I'll generate a to-do list for the day. And then while I'm doing my workout, I'll go right back, I'll go over and I'll write something down on my to-do list that I need to do the day. Or I'll come up with an idea and I'll spend the time scribing, as they call it, writing out what that idea is. So it's taking that time for me in the mornings to be able to basically outline the rest of my day. And because I got in a really good workout, I feel really good about myself. It gives me the energy to get through an entire day. Whereas if I don't get in a good workout, by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I'm done.
Can I give you a strategic thinking framework that your pain of reading a lot of books, you get this thinking time, you come up with these ideas, but I'm going to come back to the books of what you said. It's like, I read these things, or I was reading these things, but I wasn't taking any action. And I want to give it to you. I want to give it to those who are watching or listening, because it's just, I hear so many people that they take in a lot of information, they take in a lot of knowledge, but then it's like, what are we doing with that?
Yep.
And it is the ideas to action framework. And once again, it's another acronym. So we start with the I, which is insights. And so, for example, very practically speaking, if you're watching or listening to this podcast, you get to the end of this thing, get a piece of paper, pull up Apple Notes. What are the 3 insights that you gained from the conversation that Rusty and I have had? Or Rusty, back to your point, if you're reading a book, it's like at the end of a chapter or at the end of the book, it's like, what are the 3 or 5 or 10? This is like a pocket knife. It's portable. You can use it for different contexts, but I like to start with 3 because it's, all good things, omni, try, and perfectum, all good things come in 3. So what are the 3 insights that I gained from this learning experience? Great. Then the D is decide. Circle the number 1. So now we're forcing into what's the number 1 thing, the number 1 insight that we believe is going to create the greatest value. And then the E is expand. Give it meaning. Why is this insight that we've selected as the number 1 out of the 3 or the 5 or the 10? Why is this important, and why now? So we're expanding upon that. We're giving it meaning. And then the A is action. So we've selected what the top insight that we gained from the learning experience. We have given it meaning. What are the 3 actions that we can take to begin to apply this newfound knowledge? Because when we start taking action, that's when we turn the knowledge into real wisdom. And then finally, the most important piece of this ideas to action framework is the share. It's the S. It's who do we need to share this with so that we can get some accountability? Because it's just so easy to not do something, which is why I'm so grateful for the time that we got to share together in our mastermind in Platinum Elevated, because you and I showed up every single week. What's going on? What are you doing? And then the text messaging back and forth that we've had. It's just ensured that we don't fall back on our previous version of ourselves, because it's so easy to do that until we have established that new routine, just like you've done now with the Miracle Morning, which was supported by the app. So when I look back, it's all of these little inflection points that at the time probably felt very insignificant, but have multiplied over time as you've bought back your time to get to a new future self here.
Well, you look at just look at how many of us hit the snooze button. And you hit the snooze button, it's 10 minutes. Do you hit it once or do you hit it twice? Well, guess what? If you stop hitting it, and let's just pretend that's, 10 minutes a day, 5 working days during the week, that's another 50 minutes.
It's an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're picking up time, and hitting the snooze button, as all these different people tell me, it's not really good for your rest or your sleep anyway. You should just jump right out of bed. Well, I don't like jumping right out of bed, so sometimes you got to force yourself to do it. But then you tell people about it, and that's where, having you to be able to hold me accountable. And we all have people that we talk to about things, but very few people will tell you the truth. And very few people will call you out. And very few people will say, hey, you said you were going to do this. Why haven't you done it? And if you don't have those people in your life, go find one. You don't need a lot. You just need one.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited for you, because you're going to be able to take your expertise, not only in helping people frame and figure out how to do things, which, some people think's the hardest part. Usually the hardest part is holding your foot to the fire and actually doing the work.
Right.
And I know having you hold me accountable was huge. And you still hold me accountable.
Well, let's hold those who are watching or listening to this conversation accountable and give them an action, something practical that they can now take, they can apply based upon your experience, based upon what we've been talking about, to go from a very turbulent time in your entrepreneurial journey to establish new routines, to establish new habits, to get beyond that, and just to continuously learn and see things differently. What would you recommend practically that someone who is watching or listening can do next on their own entrepreneurial journey to level up business?
My business is we invest money for a lot of people. And there are a lot of great investments. But the best investment I've ever found is investing in yourself. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid, though, if it's not working for you, to change it. The miracle morning, it wants you got to stand up and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. Well, that doesn't work for me. So I lay down and I do the stretching and things that I want to do. Well, you need to focus and read and not do anything else but read. Well, I just happen to be able to ride a bike and read at the same time. So there's no one size fits all. It's what works for you. And being willing to tell other people, I'm going to try this for a week, or I'm going to try this for a month, and having someone hold you accountable. And then by the end of that week, you can look back and say, that worked for me, or, well, that didn't work for me. Maybe I try something else. But investing in yourself.
I like that. And I'm going to add to your idea, because establishing a new routine, we often start with the best of intentions, but 1, 3, 10, 30. I've done this multiple times in my life. I set the intention just to do it one day. And I do it one day and I'm like, that's fantastic. Now I'm going to do it 3 days. And I get to 3 days, then I'm going to do it 10. I'm going to go from 3 to 10, 10 to 30, and then 30 to 90 even, for that matter. And by that point, it's very easy. But those first 1, 3, 10 days are so critically important. And I think where the accountability does come back into play. Rusty, thank you so much for sharing time and investing time today, because this conversation is going to go out and multiply time and perspective for others who watch and listen. So I'm so grateful, and I appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge that you've shared with all of us.
Well, I'm grateful for you too. I hope this is, again, what you're doing and how you're working with people and talking to them about really things that can help impact them and impact their lives and impact their families is fantastic. So keep it up, and appreciate you having me on.
As always, man, this has been a lot of fun. And if you want to continue to learn, if you want to continue to grow, if you want to continue to level up, get a free copy of Banking on Change. Text me 832-549-5792, and I'll text you a reply back with a link. You can grab it immediately.